Well, I don't know how this is going to work out with this party atmosphere in here. Peg can't hear it. Can you hear it, actually? You can. Oh, that's bad, actually. That means I have to turn it down because these monitors are not supposed to be up while we're speaking. Everything here is just sort of really raw right now, so you have to forgive the technical blathering or whatever. But we heard a short excerpt from Decatur, which is sort of from a more recent incarnation from the last couple of years of Silver Apples, a release that came out earlier this year.
Yeah, I think it was around January or so, February maybe this year.
Mm-hmm. So this is a kind of a longish track, but it's actually, 42 minutes long. Anyway, my guests here, let's get started from the beginning. Danny Taylor,
Hey.
Original drummer of the Silver Apples. It's amazing to have you here in the studio. Speak into the mic if you would.
Glad to be here.
All right,
Very
and of course Simeon,
Hello.
the original members of the Silver Apples, and Peg is here as well to keep us in line.
I thought she was here to take pictures.
So this is an amazing story. Danny, the original drummer here, was sort of missing in action, if we're to believe this story. You want to tell us a little bit about how you guys sort of like drifted apart, and then we'll get to how we sort of rediscovered you.
Well, the business itself got very complicated for us. The last time we appeared at Max's, a gentleman came over to me and put his hand out and said, "Are you Danny Taylor?" And I said, "Yeah." And he shook my hand, and with his other hand, he served me with papers to confiscate my drums. So things were really difficult, for us musically to perform, after that. And we still played for a while, and then
What year would this be?
the year
69.
yeah, just around there.
Uh-huh.
And we still hung out, and we still played and what, but it was getting harder and harder, and
We were afraid to go out because of these marshals that were somehow empowered by this lawsuit that Pan Am laid on us.
Right, that's from the second album.
Yeah, from the cover of the second album, Contact. We were just goofing around and thought it'd be kind of fun to have, after showing just, a couple of hippies trying to fly this airplane, to put a big plane crash on the back, which would be an obvious, thing that would happen. And how do we fit into it? Well, we would just be the survivors, and we would just be sitting there on the fence and looking around at the wreckage. We thought that was just kind of funny, but Pan Am went berserk.
well,
And,
the statement was basically technology going out of control.
Yeah.
It was real simple.
Well, so they were actually trying to sue you for some outrageous amount, like $100,000.
100,000 was what I heard.
Right.
And they also got...
Today it would be 100 million.
Yeah,
Probably.
they got an injunction against Cap, apparently, to get the stuff off the shelves.
but
and-
everything was approved. All the artwork and everything was approved.
By the label.
Yeah.
by everybody.
They had an ad agency that put it all together. Everybody saw that, including Pan Am, before it went out. But maybe they just never looked at the back. I don't know. How
Right.
could they miss that plane
Right.
crash?
Well, they probably just saw the front cover and said, "Oh yeah, let's go with it," right? But they look up when you see. For those who don't know what the back cover looked like, we should describe it a little bit. Is basically there's the aftermath of a gigantic plane wreck, and you guys are just sitting there amongst it all, like diddling around with the banjo and what have you, and it's a pretty funny cover. But I could see where they would get a little bit upset.
Especially because during the shoot on the front in the cockpit, they went around sticking the Pan Am logos in every place that they thought would be in the shot. Those Pan Am logos don't exist on those cockpits, but they went in and stuck them all over the place, and so there's Pan Am all over the front.
And we did give them credit for it. I mean, on the back it said, "Thanks for the jet."
Right.
And for the jet.
Right. So anyway, at this point, you guys sort of like were trying to lay low, right? And
Yeah.
then and then how did you sort of drift apart? You didn't really you weren't you were recording a third album, as from what I
had
understand.
finished it.
But we
Right.
finished, yeah.
But when Pan Am went belly up, not Pan Am, when Cap Records went belly up, the bill at the record plant wasn't paid. And so we were left trying to shop ourselves around to other labels to pick up this material, and I guess because of the Pan Am lawsuit and other problems that we had with CAP with our contract and stuff like that, we couldn't get anybody interested, and so the tapes just died on the vine, so to speak, over a period of years.
Basically, the pressure that Pan Am put on it, they were pulling records out of the stores. They would physically go to a store and see a Contact album, and I don't know if they bought them, took them, or what.
Really?
But there were no albums in the stores.
Wow.
And, you know, at that point, other companies didn't want to touch us because Pan Am was, you know, a heavy hitter.
We just had too much baggage attached to us at that point, and it was like about $50,000-$60,000 worth of recording bills that had to be paid by somebody, and we just couldn't get anybody to pick it up, and so that was kind of a dead issue, and we couldn't play concerts around anywhere in the country because Pan Am apparently had marshals after us, and so Danny and I just sort of like said, well, we'll just cool our jets for a while. I got a job as a DJ at Aunt Rhoda's Day Camp, and Danny went on.
Aunt Rhoda's Day Camp?
Yeah, it was a club in New York called Aunt Rhoda's Day Camp, and what the concept on this was, it was a non-alcoholic club, but it was like totally freaky with, you know, strobe lights everywhere.
Okay,
you had to like grope your way all around.
They had no alcohol, but they had everything else.
They had, and they allowed everything, anything you wanted to bring in, they would allow. And so I played, I was the disc jockey every night at that thing. That's how I kind of kept myself going. Danny, were you walking dogs or something? You were doing that at one point, weren't you?
Yeah, I did that for a while, yeah. Ended up out in, I managed a couple of companies and ended up out in California doing a music television show.
Really?
That was called Performance. We take a local group and let them do like 15 minutes or so, you know, of their material, and then interview for another 15 or 20 minutes and let them close. It was an hour show. And it was great. We had, we were getting 80 percentile, 90 percentile ratings on it, and everyone said, this ain't gonna work, you know? It's MTV.
Music on television never worked.
Right.
Never worked.
This was like, what, 71 or something?
75.
75?
75 already, yeah.
Really not that far away.
No, actually, you know.
Not that,
And
like
it was
6
great.
years later.
Everyone loved it, but, you know, it's just this, an idea in their head that it won't work because it never worked before.
Right. So anyway, you were there, and then you came back to New York State, and you sort of like drifted into the suburbs somewhere. And
yeah, I got tired of the expenses of Manhattan, and I worked for High Times for a while. I was advertising director, and then got us connected with the Alternative Press Syndicate, and put a library together for Bell and Howell of all the underground papers that ever existed.
Really?
From the Oracle and the Seed and
Really?
East Village Other. So they're all documented on from day one.
wow.
From first issue to the last issue. And
But so you weren't aware in the last few years that there was all this interest around the Silver Apples material?
Not at all.
Really?
And in fact, I listen to WFMU all the time, and I love it when you play the electronics, and I love it when you play the jazz and everything. It just happened that one day, I was listening, and I heard Silver Apples. And I went, wait a minute. I haven't heard this name in a long time. When I listened to you doing a fundraiser.
Yeah.
And then said, oh, Silver Apple Contact CD. And I went, oh, wait a minute now. They didn't have CDs 30 years ago. Right, let me look into this. And I called the station, and, you know, politely, oh, this Silver Apple CD. By the way, who released it? And they told me. Okay, listen, Ron. And he said, why do you want to know? I said, well, I was the drummer. And you're Danny Taylor? I said, well, yeah. He goes, Simeon's got to get in touch with you. Well, I misunderstood him. I said, Simeon, man, I haven't seen him in years. I have no idea where he is. He said, no. Simeon wants to get in touch with you. Can I give him your number? So I said, yeah. And the next day, Simeon called me, and 2 days later, he ended up in Kingston. And it was wonderful. The whole thing started all over. I had no idea what was going on.
Fabio sent me an email. It said, We have found Danny! Exclamation point.
You're the culprit,
Yeah.
huh?
That's all the email said. We have found Danny! Exclamation point, and a phone number.
Flip my life upside down. 30 years later, someone tapped me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, by the way."
Yeah, I thought it was really amazing that, you know, you just weren't in contact, and all of a sudden there you were, and I thought, wow, this has got to happen, you know. So here you are. It's really amazing. You know, there's a lot of people, at least revolving around WFMU, that are big fans of you guys. So it's like a really special moment that this is happening, and we should talk about this material that you unearthed.
Yeah, in the cardboard box that the mice didn't eat.
So now this is yet other material besides the third album, which is now forever lost.
No,
right?
no. This is what happened. The last day that we did a mix-down session at the recording studio, they gave Danny and me quarter-inch, 2-track dubs.
Safeties.
To take home and listen to make sure when they finally locked it in, you know, chiseled it in stone, that this was what we wanted.
Right.
That's what survived. The original tapes are long gone. They were the best. We had people track them down as best we could, and from what we can figure, when the recording studio went out of business, they put a notice in the New York Times that they were putting all unpaid for tapes and whatever into a warehouse in New Jersey, and they gave the address and the phone number and all that stuff, and anybody who wanted to claim them could do so for a period of 2 years. And all you had to do was pay your bill, you know, pay the storage fee and all that stuff, and you could do it. Well,
all you had to do was read the New York Times.
Yeah, we didn't see the notice, and so 2 years went by, and our tapes were sold at bulk auction. You know, probably ended up in some rehearsal studio, and were bulk erased and are used by another band.
That's
so
so
the
sad.
original mix down we couldn't do, but we did have this. Dub, and it had been sitting in this attic.
It was perfect.
It was amazing. We got a TIAC tape deck that I had, and a DAT machine, and we said this stuff may last one pass. We'll make one pass with the DAT rolling. We don't know what's on here, but we'll do it.
Right.
And so that's what we did, and it survived. And then we were, since we had it digitized, we were able then to take it into a recording studio
Clean
and
it up.
clean all the hiss out of it, and put it into CD, you know, information, and release it. So that's what the garden is, and that's what this party's all about tonight.
And Simeon and I laughed when we were listening to a number of the cuts that we totally forgot what we had done, you know, because it was so long ago.
Right.
And we're listening to the one, the Mustang Sally.
So that.
Oh, yes!
So that actually reminds me that in the article, it's mentioned that you guys got together out of the sort of the remains of this other band that you used to play in on a regular basis.
The Overland Stage Electric Band.
Right. So you guys were sort of doing like a cover kind of thing for a while.
Yeah.
And then you sort of, when that didn't pan out with the rest of the members, you just sort of veered off. What, you know, sort of spurred you on to do your own material and that sort of thing? Because you were doing covers and you were doing a lot of popular tunes.
Yeah, but we were given the opportunity by a guy by the name of Barry Bryant, who became our manager, to just take our stuff into his artist loft and set it up, and we could even like sleep on the floor, just live there if we wanted to. He would just give us the space to take this idea and develop it. And we were there for about 6 months, not listening to anybody else's music, just buying oscillators and trying to hook things together and working out drum beats that would work with the oscillators that in the way that I could play them. And
playing constantly.
We did go out and play like concerts in the park and stuff to try and get reaction, and, you know, people throw stuff at us, so we go back and work on it some more. And, you know, that's kind of how that developed. I really would love to give Barry Bryant credit for giving us that opportunity. I don't know what we had done if we didn't have 6 months to sit down and do this intense kind of like development thing.
So you were playing in other clubs.
It wasn't really clubs. We would go out and we'd get a park permit, and we'd go down to Union Square and play in the park on Friday night.
in the band
Square
shell,
and-
in the band shell that existed.
Yeah.
There. It's no longer there, unfortunately. But
There's a lot of construction going on there.
oh yeah, it's another story. But so yeah, we're getting all this like boominess. Actually, why don't we play something from this The Garden, this new release, and then we'll come back and talk a little more. I really like this cut. I don't care what the people say, from The Garden, original material from 1968 through 69, and recently unearthed and issued now, and it's also going to be on vinyl.
We are going to do a vinyl, yes, but as it is now, it's currently available on CD. It should be in the stores. Today is the release date, I guess, right?
Today is the release date.
Well, that's why I'm sitting here getting loaded.
All right. Okay. So let's hear this song, and we'll come back in a little bit and talk some more. Here's from The Garden.
I don't care what the people say.
Silver Apples with A Pox on You from the Contact album, their second album. And prior to that, I Don't Care What the People Say from The Garden, their brand new release of material that was originally to be their third album back in '69, and out now, today. It was the official release date, and
Hello.
we're here. It's amazing. You know,
It was the trains, you know. If the trains were a little bit better, we would have been here on time. But
the trains.
public transportation is, right?
Well, you're here.
Slow.
You know, the two songs that really do it for me, like when I first heard for the very first time a Silver Apples track, the very first track I ever heard was A Pox on You. And I was driving in a car, I remember, and this was like late 70s sometime. And I believe it was on this station. I was listening to the station, and I heard it, and I thought, wow, this is really wild. I never heard anything quite like that. I had listened to a lot of psychedelic music and electronic music, but this was like sort of a weird crossover of like a lot of different styles and things that were happening. And I was just curious, you know, like, how did you guys, you know, I mean, you must have been listening to psychedelic music because it was all happening around you at the time in the late 60s.
No. I don't think we ever consider ourselves as psychedelic or electronic. Basically, we're a rock and roll band.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah, but
as we had, you know, the problems with the old group, and as people dropped out, we kept replacing them with oscillators until it got to a point where we just had, you know, we had the lead and the rhythm and the bass,
right,
and the drums.
Right.
We didn't have this sort of like big concept, like let's do some freaky new thing, you know? I mean, we were just trying to survive.
Continue playing our music.
That's all we wanted to do.
That's
Right.
what we wanted to do, you know?
But from what I've read, you, Simeon, were very influenced by you know, these like serious composers, right?
Yeah.
And you were turned on to oscillators, you
Yeah.
know, and this very crude early kind of synthesizer thing.
I had friends who were serious composers, Juilliard trained type guys. One guy in particular, Harold Rogers, would drink gallons of vodka and play his oscillator against Beethoven or Webern or whoever he would conjure up. And
sounds like a good night.
Oh, it was wonderful. I used to go to his house and play chess a lot. And then
I remember him.
Yeah,
he
sure.
helped us with the keyboard.
Exactly.
The initial keyboard.
Right. He lives in New Hampshire now. Do you know that he wrote the entire science section of the Funkin' Wagnalls Encyclopedia?
What?
He is an amazing person. Anyway, he used to do this. He had an orchestra. He conducted this orchestra. He composed music. He was a featured singer at St. John's Choir.
Really?
An amazing musician. And one day, when he wasn't paying any attention, I threw on a record, and I forget who it was. It might have been the Stones, might have been the Beatles, just some pop group that he happened to have. And I tried to play the oscillator against that, and I said, I think this works better than with Beethoven.
Right.
And so, and I was working with Danny and company at the time at the Cafe Wah, And so one night I brought this thing in, and when they were doing their extended guitar break kind of thing, I just sort of like plugged it into an amp and said, I'm going to see what happens. And I started, swooping sounds up and down across the room. And, well, you can imagine it.
I liked it. Hey.
I liked it too. I thought it was fun and freaky, and
Well, see, that's the thing that I was wondering is, like, how did the audiences respond to this? Because supposedly, like in the '60s, everybody was into this like wild and groovy thing, right? But
it wasn't as free form as you would think.
That's
it had its
yeah.
rigidity.
Right.
Rigidity.
That's what I would think, that there is a
yeah.
certain level where it didn't cross over.
There was, okay, sure, play truckin' for 45 minutes. Do that, as long as it doesn't break any barriers. As long as it doesn't make you have to stop and think about what's going on.
Now, there were certain people that were free enough to say, wow, this is something different. And there were others that said, no, where's the guitars?
There were people that said it made them levitate, and I kind of thought that was fun.
Yeah.
We could make people levitate. Think of what else you could do.
Yeah.
So you didn't really consider it electronic music, psychedelic music. It was just what you were doing.
Yeah, it's just we were just trying to make music. We were desperately trying to stay in tune and make music.
Because our background, rhythm and blues and rock, we playing Trudy Hellers and Joel Hellers and all the real solid clubs at the time, and you're required to have a certain style of music so people can dance to it. And when you transpose from one group to the next group, the music never stopped. You had the guitarist would come over and he'd plug in, and the other guitarist would unplug, and all get down to the drummer, and I'd start playing a cymbal, and the other guy would back off the drums, and I'd get on the bass pedal, and he'd be on the hi-hat still, and get in the seat, and we keep that continuous music. And we were used to doing this. This was, you had to pay the bills, make a living.
Right.
And
But you got bored with that.
well, we didn't get bored with it. We were kind of almost not forced into it, but we got involved.
It did become a kind of a routine, though.
Yeah. It was fun, but that's you play a song 1,000 times, you can shut your eyes and play a song. There was no problem about it.
Mm-hmm.
And when we evolved with the Silver Apples, it was the same thing. We kept doing it over and over and over.
That's how we rehearsed. We've been rehearsing all this week for the Maxwell's concert.
Right. Yeah.
That's what we do. We sit down in the studio and play the same thing over and over and over and over again, to the point where we can talk to each other, have a conversation, and keep the song going.
It's like a bite of a sandwich.
Yeah, eat something. I think that's the secret to how to develop is to do something till it becomes automatic.
So you guys are going to go on tour now. Is that the idea, or?
There are dates set up, and we have a few dates now in New York, a couple of other things coming up in the fall, and
We have
Europe.
Europe.
We're going to Europe, Paris,
in
end of December.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, not to make things awkward or uncomfortable for you, but how is this sitting with the other members that sort of came in and out?
We have perfectly wonderful relationships with them, and they I can't tell you how valuable Christian and Michael and Joe were to getting me back up to speed. I mean, these guys are incredible musicians, and especially in the case of Christian, who just sort of like abandoned his life to go on tour with me, to fill in the voids, the places where I couldn't perform the same thing, because I was, over a period of time, building this so-called Simeon instrument back up to the point where it could perform. And in the meantime, he was filling in the voids and keeping it together. And it was through Christian that I was able to get Michael to come along and knock out a year of his life to just help me go out there and find myself again. I can't tell you how much I'm indebted to them. And then when I wanted to become a duo. I finally got up to strength. I wanted to be a duo again. That was the way the band originally was.
Right.
I offered Michael the job. He said he would rather perform with Christian, and so he and Christian went their own ways. And I got Joe Propp from Providence, and we toured for a year. Oh, he's an amazing drummer. And so I toured with Joe, and it was a marvelous building experience for me. He's now recording with a group of musicians up in Providence and doing his own thing, and he's sending me tapes, and we may be doing something with him down the line, but it's all very warm and open and totally no personal conflicts or anything like that. I mean, when Danny resurfaced, everybody knew what was going to happen.
Right. So now it's the two of you again.
Yeah.
Basically. Okay. So, and you're also going back in the studio and recording new material, right?
We haven't laid down any new stuff yet. I had already been halfway through a new album with Joe. And so we have my tracks laid. What we're going to do, I guess, is plug Danny in on those songs, and then that's nowhere near a full album. And so then there will be some compositions that Danny and I'll do ourselves.
It was very strange when, after our initial meeting, the next time Simeon came up to Kingston, he had the Simeon with him, and he set up, and what do you want to play? I said, well, just play anything, let's play. We haven't played. And he started playing, and I started playing, and we looked at each other. It's working. It was, all the stuff that was there was still there. It was almost like riding a bicycle.
So you were still playing, on your own when you were living?
Very occasionally. In fact, probably for the past 10 years, I haven't played at all. But the week after I met Simeon, I went out and bought a drum set. And,
so you didn't even have a drum kit for a while?
No, at that point, no. And I got some headsets, and I plugged them into the radio and started playing, and everything clicked. So I started throwing albums in the CD and playing against them, and that worked. And I started playing Silver Apples, and that worked. And it was just, I was amazed, But it was, we did it for so long and so hard that it was all there. It was just a point of building up endurance and figuring out what I did.
So what about the double drum kit thing? Were you always using the two drum kits? Or?
Initially, I started just with a basic kit. The double drum came up. It wasn't so much for the other bass drum. It was all the other tom-toms, because I wanted the melody. I wanted to be able to actually play melody with the rolls and what. And the other bass drum was just to hold up the two tom-toms. Right.
So for two guys, you had a lot of equipment to lug around.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, the stories about the Simeon, I mean, the thing looks gigantic in this photo.
It's just the initial one, yeah.
Well, and actually, it's like this big table
the
of
initial
stuff.
one wasn't, it was just stacked up on a table.
Yeah.
Then we got a piece of 4x8 plywood and cut holes into it and dropped all the pieces in there, so at least now it was organized. But we found the first time we went on tour, they dropped it off the edge of the plane. And all these nice little holes were nice little holes, and all the oscillators were on the bottom. Sorry about that. And it took us hours and hours and hours and hours to figure out, how to put it all back together.
I mean, that thing seemed like it was so fragile that it must have broke down a lot during performances.
It did.
Yeah, it wasn't actually break. If a cloud went overhead, it would knock it out of tune. Because all you're doing, we were dealing with basic sine waves and square waves. You set an oscillator for 440 cycles per second. That's all you're getting is A. Period. You pluck a guitar string at 440, and you're getting a third, fifth, seventh octave above and below. It's right across the human hearing range. But the oscillator was 440, and that was it. You had 441, and all of a sudden you had a little dissonance in there. And like I said, just a cloud going over, a temperature change would knock everything out of whack.
But I remember in a concert we did in Chicago where I spent an hour while the house band played an extended set with a soldering iron inside that damn thing on stage while those guys were playing. I was soldering pieces. I mean, it did physically break up too. We get it off of the airplane and discover during sound check that one whole section was gone or something.
Oh man.
It was very fragile.
So this photo that's on the insert of the, is it the Contact album? No, it's the first album. The photo that's, there was an insert.
That's Silver Apple.
Oh yeah.
What roof was this on?
That's Barry Bryant's roof. That's where we practiced.
Yeah, that was great.
This was like in Midtown or something?
It was on 26th Street, I think.
Right, because for years I was thinking, where the hell was this shot taken? Because you can see the Empire State Building behind it.
It was only like 10 blocks from Empire State.
The Blue Cross Blue Shield, I think, building on one side, and then the Empire State Building behind the big brick wall. and you could watch planes take off and land at Ebbets Field. And it was wonderful. Oh, it was great. It was so fantastic.
You look really young in this shot where you're playing the drum kit.
He was 18 years old.
18.
Yeah,
Wow.
I was older than that. Oh, no, I should say I'm younger. No, I should.
Man.
I don't know
You
what
were-
I should be.
Let's see, in 1920?
I was about 20 years old.
Okay. Well, I thought you were 18. You lied.
So,
Oh, well.
so how did the audiences, really respond after you got rolling and you were really playing on a regular basis in clubs? I mean, how did they respond to your music in, the bigger clubs and such?
Well, when they were done levitating, then they applauded.
I mean, there was this whole
Very true.
there was this whole thing about in the late 60s. There was a whole drug culture, right?
Yeah.
So there must have been some interest in that kind of music, related to that whole scene, right? Because everybody was, psychedelic music,
No,
drugs,
the
blah,
drugs
blah, blah.
had nothing to do with it because they either loved us or hated us. It didn't matter what drug they were on.
Right.
You either could accept it or not, We found a lot of times we'd play and we'd end the song and the audience would be sitting there looking at it, not know what we were going to do next or if this was part of the song, And then they'd jump up and down and scream and do their thing. We start playing again, and it was just dead silence. It was great.
All right, why don't we play another track from the Garden now?
Why, is this getting boring?
No, not at all.
Oh.
But, I want to give people a break. By the way, those who are just tuning in, you're listening to WFMU East Orange, WXHD Mount Hope, even though our new studios are in Jersey City. This is, I think, week 3 now that we're actually technically here. And my guests are the Silver Apples, the original Silver Apples in the studio here with Peg, helping along. And we're talking about their past and their present and their future. And the album that just has come out, The Garden, which we're going to play a track off of right now. In the background, by the way, we've had Decatur going the whole time, which I really like. I really like this kind of stuff.
That's Michael Lerner and Christian Hawkins.
Yeah.
The first two guys that I worked with after, we came out.
Right.
We did this whole thing down in Atlanta, actually in Decatur, Georgia. That's why it's called Decatur. Mm-hmm. It's a suburb of Atlanta. Tom Smith produced it. It's a lovely thing. I really love this piece of music.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's very different too. It's not like the other recordings. They all have their own unique sort of flavor, and this definitely has its. And so
it has its.
Yeah, I'll let it trail off and let people figure that out. And we also have to get to this recording. We haven't talked about this at all. The Beacon release, which is, when is this due out?
The remix of the Beacon release?
Yeah.
The Beacon has been out for a while.
No, I mean,
but,
the
remix
is
also right now. I mean, it's this week or something. It should be in the
She's
stores.
shaking her head no.
What is it? Monday night? The 29th. September 29th is the release date. Okay.
Oh, yeah, here it says the 28th. No, that says 28 Decatur Avenue. All right, well.
It's 10 incredible musicians that remixed our stuff.
Well,
I'd love to get into that.
Let's tick off some of the names on here. Some people will know. Sonic Boom, Pete Kember of Spaceman 3. Loop Guru, him, Salaryman. I'm not familiar with some of these. Snow Pony, Sybarite.
Sybarite is Christian Hawkins.
Ah, okay.
He remixed his own stuff. Nobody's supposed to know that.
Well,
Christian,
they
I'm
know
ratting
now.
on you.
They know now. Alpha Stone, which is also Pete Baseman, also of the Spaceman 3 fame, and Skylab. So we'll hear a little bit of this in just a bit. Right now we have a track from The Garden queued up, so let's get to that, and we'll be back and chat some more with Simeon and Danny. All right. Okay. See you in just a little bit.
Bye.